Airflow sensor, your EGR, which is again an emissions thing. I keep forgetting what it stands for. Emissions, exhaust gas race. You know, I've recirculated a fair bit of gas in my day.
We both did today.
Yeah. Alright, so just some quick backstory on my 95 LeSabre. I bought it for $1,000 for a lovely woman in New Jersey. It's pretty clean underneath, pretty clean on the outside, obviously. Interior needs a little work, and I set to work. First thing it really needed was brake lines. It ran great, and then all of a sudden popped brake lines. So I got all new nickel copper brake lines, never corrode. I got a brand new aluminum radiator. And then it started smoking white on one fine afternoon. So, you know, that signals coolant from my research. And talking to the great Scott, he said we could probably get away with just doing, you know, the manifolds because head gaskets are so rare on these 3800 motors. So that's what we decided we were going to do. And hopefully that addresses the problem, but you know, spoiler alert, there's always problems with these older cars. So even though it's only 95, it is a classic, as you can see by the plates. So we're gonna get to work on it and see if we can't, you know, get it a little better. Janky do thanky. So here's our plan of attack here.
Okay, number one, I don't know if it's really necessary to be number one, but number one was to relieve fuel pressure, which we're going to do in a second here. Number two is to get all the fluids out of it, all the fluids meaning oil and coolant. And from there, bring the car back down and just start ripping and tearing on this intake manifold, and as well as the lower intake manifold. And there's quite a bit. It looks easy, but I know it's not going to be. I mean, it's not going to be difficult, but it's going to be time consuming. Yeah. So, and a lot of wrench turning. So.
Yep.
That's about it.
Yeah. So let's turn some wrenches. Alright, so proposed repair or replace items: upper intake, lower intake, thermostat, fuel injector O-rings, water pump, serpentine belt. First step, get it up on lift, so you gotta make sure it's just in the exact right place and be safe with all that. Because you're gonna be walking underneath that, stand around, look at stuff, point for a while. We decided we're gonna take the oil out, oil and coolant come out, so take our oil out there, let it drain out, and get the new filter in place. Now this time obviously we're just doing the sort of cheap oil and filter because we're going to drive it for a little while and then try to flush everything again. So, but you know, lube up your oil filter and hand tight, and you don't want to break it off. Remember to lube it up, you know. All right, so we got our oil out. You can see the underside of this car. You're not going to be able to see much without the light, but overall, good condition. These motor mounts are an issue on these Buicks, and this one's not in bad condition, although overall the subframe you can see has, you know, a decent amount of rust on it, but for a Northeast car from 25 years old, certainly not that bad. So we drained the oil, took the old filter out. Now one thing I read on the forums, which I think was a great idea, was to put some, you know, just cheap oil in there and a cheap filter. Oh, that's antifreeze. Put antifreeze in your engine bay. So we got this nice little beautiful orange cute filter and some Super Tech 10W30. We're gonna chuck that in there, and then, you know, once the car's back up and running, we'll run that for just like a week and drive it and try to flush out any extra coolant that may be in there and then change it again. Some people recommend doing it 3 or 4 times, but I think we caught it relatively early, so at least that'll help us in trying to, you know, flush out any potential coolant that may be in there. So here we go, let's change the oil. So obviously we already changed the oil, and we like to travel through time here on Janky AF, but we're actually flushing the coolant now, and this is a pain because this aluminum radiator is great, but the spot for the release, if you will, is not in the same spot. So it's buried under, you know, where some frame is, so we had to like basically undo the tube and let it out that way, and it kind of just dumped out everywhere into this like poop bucket. And so now we're just, because, you know, coolant, it just, you know, deteriorates everything, especially metal, so we had to try to do the best we could to clean it up, but it was such a mess. And anyways, now we're about to start taking stuff out and putting new oil in, as you can see.
So we got 30 pounds of pressure on there. this is a compression kit as well as it's a bleeder. So we're gonna get rid of any excess pressure and fuel that's in there.
Nice.
Catch it in a can and
Nice.
get rid of it.
Okay, so we're doing main job is upper and lower intake manifolds, which this is your upper intake, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then the lower is basically just the gasket, right?
It's connected to the bottom of that,
Yeah.
which goes into your intake ports.
While we're doing that, we're hoping it's not a head gasket. According to my research, these 3800s, which are one of the most lauded engines of modern times, rarely have head gasket issues, so we're hoping it's just the intake manifolds. We got this beautiful aluminum radiator, so we're slowly working on it. Yeah, here you go. So here's your,
Evidently,
which this
and
actually may be the wrong one.
Don't quote me on this, but
Yep.
evidently, one of these 3 ports, I believe it's this, is it that port?
But that might not even be the right one.
Okay, well,
So I ordered 2.
One of these 3 ports is a coolant passage.
Okay.
What happens is these are plastic,
Yep.
or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Polyethylene
Resin or something.
resin, and they get warped around this area, and the seal breaks, and it actually starts mixing with your oil. So
Yep.
that's and we know a couple of these are oil passages, and one of these is like I said, a coolant passage.
Okay. And cars don't run very well on coolant, do
No, not usually. No.
Alright, so here we are starting to pull stuff off. We got to pull all the electronics off. Just the little plastic plugs, and you got to pull this plate off the throttle itself off. A bunch of bolts around the intake itself off. So just turning wrenches, figuring out what's what, taking it off, being careful, being delicate when you need to, and then, laying into it when you need to as well. So, I think we pretty much got the intake off there. It was kind of attached to the MAF, the mass airflow sensor. So we ended up taking that off kind of all in one piece just because it was easier. And then that kind of ended up being a problem later, but you'll see. And the whole gang's there. Look at that. Like king of the hill, All right, so quick little update for you. We took all the fuel rail components off here. As you can see, and you have your fuel injectors, which we took off. We took all the electronics off first on this hose here, and that was various things for modern day cars. And then here's your throttle, and you had to disconnect that. There's a little metal panel that goes right here that we took that off. So all pretty simple. And then we just took the 6 bolts off of the actual intake, so we're going to try to pop that off soon. We plugged up our fuel injector holes to keep them safe.
7 bolts on the intake, 1 back here.
Oh, and then 1 back here.
But I don't know, there still might be 1 up here we're missing.
Sure. Oh yeah, there's 1 right there.
There you go.
Yep, so we're going to
And
try
there's 1 here.
And right there. So a bunch of bolts, we're finding them all. I managed to drop 1 down into the depths from, not the intake, but what was that we were taking off? The fuel injectors?
Yeah,
or fuel injector covers.
Yeah, the mounts.
So, and we've drained the radiator, which hopefully you'll see on the time lapse. That was very fun, and
Messy.
Drained it into the poop bucket. So
The anything goes bucket.
the anything goes bucket, which may or may not have poop in it.
It may, yes.
We're
that's
not sure.
correct.
It's
May or may
possible.
not have poop.
So that's where we're at, and now we're gonna try to get the rest of the bolts out and pop that intake out. See how it looks underneath. So we got the intake off. It came off sort of attached to the mass airflow sensor. There's a captured bolt that shouldn't have been it wasn't as captured as it should have been. It was spinning around, so we took them off together just to get the nuts off more easily, and so that was a little wrinkle. Great, welcome back. Well, we managed to get the air intake off. As you can see, there's nothing under there, just keeping it protected. There was coolant that poured out when we took off the upper intake, so that's, well, not a great sign, especially because a little tiny bit dropped in there, but it is good from a diagnostic standpoint that we know we have coolant coming out. And if you look here real close, you can see on this little piece of plastic is broken, so it was leaking right out of there. And again, so from a diagnostic standpoint, it's a good sign that that's the problem and not something else. Of course, it could be something else, but
I'm pretty sure.
yeah, I mean, that's a telltale sign. So that's great. We got it off. Had a couple problems separating. What would you call this? I don't even know.
That's
This
the
is
throttle
your,
body
oh,
and
it's your
MAF.
throttle body.
Throttle
Oh
body
yeah,
and
and
MAF.
that's your right there.
There's your MAF,
Oh, yeah.
fully electronic MAF.
Yep. Mass airflow sensor. So that just had, we got that, we took that off after we took this whole unit off together because we were having some problems with this little nut bolt stud situation going on here. It's kind of confusing. So that's where we're at, and we're going to keep moving on. Here we go. All right, so we're going to, as a preventative maintenance, replace the thermostat, which is under this housing right here, and you see coolant's already starting to come out. And Scott just informed me that this is just like a mechanical device to similar metals, and it just gets to a certain temperature, it heats up,
Yep, and opens up.
and it opens up the
Allows
spring.
current to or not current. Thinking electricity. Allows coolant to flow.
Nice. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I've taped up that area, which I guess is still technically your upper intake, but the non-plastic part, just for safety's sake. And we took this housing off for the thermostat, and you can see the gasket's all shot, and thermostat I bought didn't have a gasket on it, so we managed to track one down at the parts store. And then also the O-ring kit I bought for the fuel injectors, which go in there, only came with 4 for a V6 engine, so that was kind of strange, but we're going to try to track a couple of those down too. So we got a quick little pause, but we're making progress. Alright, so we're going to end it there for today. I don't want to make these videos too long, and if you did enjoy this and want to see how it goes, well then you just have to tune into the next one here on Janky AF, the jankiest channel on YouTube or the whole internet for that matter. And now the obligatory, homeless guy, if you want, you can tip him a quarter and both your lives might get better. And what I mean by that, of course, is, we'd love it if you'd like the video or dislike it or subscribe. It'd be great. We almost got 100 subscribers, so that's a big milestone here for us on Janky AF. And we're a growing young channel, and we're very enthusiastic. So yeah, Janky do Thanky.
All it takes when you are not willing to. The garbage man. Yeah, the garbage man will wash your dishes. The garbage man will clean up